I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I installed the countertops in our remodeled kitchen over a year ago, and I never got around to putting up a backsplash. But I have solved that problem today because I've partnered with CTS RapidSet to use their new all-tile mortar. And this is a RapidSet mortar, so it's going to allow me to get this project done quicker so I can no longer have that hanging over my head. The first step in getting started for any tile job is to take the time to plan out where your tiles are going to be to start. So I'm going to start working on that step first. To figure out where to start tiling, it's very important that I don't end up with a fraction of a tile on the end of my tile job. I don't want to end up with like a 1/2 inch or 1 inch space or a tiny little tile. So in order to figure that out, I'm going to start by measuring the entire width of the surface I'm going to be tiling. And I'm going to take it about 1 inch in from there, so that's 145 inches of tile across that back of my kitchen cabinet. And I'm going to be using a 3x6 tile, and it is exactly 6 inches, so that's good to start with. Also, you need to know your spacers. I'm using a 1/16 inch spacer for a very small spacer joint. So with all that information, it's time to do some calculations. So I take 1 divided by 16 to transfer my 16th inch space into a fraction, 0.0625. And then I'm going to take that entire 145 inches and I'm going to divide it by 6.0625. That's the width of my tile plus the width of my spacer. And that tells me I'm going to have 23.9 tiles across the back. So my last tile is going to be cut off just a little bit, but it is going to be almost a full tile, which is good because I won't have a little sliver. I'm doing a subway pattern on this, so the first row, that's easy. The second row, I'm going to start with 1/2 a tile here. So I'm going to take that 145, subtract the not 6.0625, I'm just going to subtract 3 because I'm cutting that first tile in half to get my subway brick stack. So 3.0625. So that leaves me with 141.9375 inches. So I divide that now by my full tile plus spacer. So I'm going to end up with 23.4. So again, at that last, I've got just shy of 1/2 a tile. So it's going to be a normal size tile. So I can start at this end with a full tile, a 1/2 tile, a full tile, a 1/2 tile, and extend my brick pattern all the way down to the end, and I won't be left with any really skinny tiles. So I'm ready to start prepping my space for tile, and then I can get tiling. The prep is all done, and I've covered everything with brown paper, and I taped off the edge. That mortar can get really messy. I've also got a level line up here where I'm going to be tiling so that I know where the edge of my tiles are going to go. I've prepped the first cuts of all of my tiles, so once I'm ready to go, I can just start laying out and I don't have to pause for tiling. I've also removed outlet covers and I've loosened up all of my outlets so that I can tile behind them. I want the tile to sit just up a little bit behind it, so when it sits on top, it is now flush with the new wall, which is the tile wall, as opposed to flush with the old wall behind it. And now I am ready to start mixing my mortar. Now the RapidSet mortar, it does have 1.5 hour pot life, which is the amount of time in your bucket before it starts to harden up. So I'm going to be mixing small units so I can do a little bit and then go from there. I'm one person. This is not something I'm a professional. I do this all the time. I just do it occasionally. So I am slower than a professional tiler. So I like to mix smaller amounts and use that up as I go along to make sure I don't run out. The all-tile mortar comes in these 50-pound bags, but if I'm mixing for a backsplash, I'm going to use a lot less. I've actually finished the entire larger side of my window and the bottom row all the way to the edge. So I'm ready to mix my second batch. It took me about a little over an hour to do that, so I'm really glad I split this into 2 batches. But when I don't need to mix the full 50-pound bag, I do a little bit of math in order to get the appropriate amount. So I've got a scale here. This is just a kitchen scale. And then I've got my measuring cup. Now for a 50-pound bag, you normally get 6 quarts, up to 7 quarts, depending on your temperature, humidity of water. So I last time did 1 quart of water, and I did just over 8 pounds of the bag because I took that 50 pounds and I just divided it by 6 and did 1/6. This time I'm doing even half of that. So I'm going to go with 4 pounds of my all-tile mortar mix, half a quart of water. Throw your water in first and then measure out your mix and put it in and then start to mix till it's a nice, smooth peanut butter type consistency. But before I start measuring, I definitely want to put on my mask because this creates a lot of dust. Stopping at this point actually made it really nice because I was able to prep and cut out these more complicated pieces that go around the outlet, and then I'll be able to really finish up this backsplash quickly. Now for these pieces, I didn't bring up all of the mortar here. I'm going to be back buttering my tiles and putting them in. And I'm using these little T-shaped spacers. They're actually really handy for laying a subway tile pattern. I love the subway tile pattern. It's super classic and it's really easy to lay down, but I'm modernizing it with this really fun color blocking stripe pattern. So I'm kind of giving it an update, but still keeping that very classic, very simple. And these are super helpful in doing that because they have a 3T that you can do the subway tile brick pattern very easily with. So I have got all of the stuff prepped for the last section here, and I'm just going to get started. Now I am using a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch trowel for this one because I am using a 6 by 3 inch subway tile, and you're going to use this 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch trowel on any tile that is up to 8 inches typically in length, and then use a 1/4 inch by 3/8 inch if you're doing a longer subway tile, and then any smaller tiles you can still use this 1/4 inch. Now you do have a 1.5 hour pot life in the bucket, and you've got a 30-minute working time on the wall once you put it on. So you really can do a little bit larger area. I like this because I like to work, put my thin or mortar around a big area, and then I can lay tiles a lot faster. And just like that, my tile backsplash is done. One of the other things I really love about the CTS all-tile mortar is you only have to wait 5 hours after finishing your tile in order to grout it, as opposed to 24 or even up to 48 for some other mortars or thin sets. So I was able to finish tiling late afternoon, the night of working on the tile, and instead of having to wait until later in the day, the following day, I got up first thing the next morning and got the grout on. It's a great weekend project to add really just a ton of style to your kitchen. I love the glass tile. I absolutely love the modern take on a subway tile that I did with this color blocking, and it really makes my kitchen look finished. So if you like this video, make sure to hit subscribe and follow along at housefullofhandmade.com for even more videos and tutorials to DIY your own home.